Hi friends, today in this video I'm going to try to address a topic like cancer, which is a very complex topic, and I'm going to do it based on my health history, and hopefully in some future videos I might mention some of my family history regarding it. And I do not have cancer, but I do have follicular lesions in my thyroid and parathyroid region, and because of which I'm making this video. And apart from these lesions that I have that have been detected already in recent years, there are many other things that are going wrong with my body, and part of it is regarding the lifestyle that I lead, and part of it is regarding the place where I live in, all of which combined is leading to all these different symptoms that I have, which are in the pre-cancerous stages. So why I am making this important video is because there are many of us globally who actually are in these pre-cancerous stages or in the benign tumor stages, but because we are not yet in the cancerous phase of our life, sometimes we don't get the right treatments or the right support for the healthcare problems that are stemming in our lives, because many healthcare providers are usually unaware about how the progress of cancer happens in a patient. And it's not their fault, because most doctors or nurses who will be involved in the diagnosis of the patient when they have a disease are taught usually to look for some criteria regarding any kind of cancer. And if your lab reports, if your symptoms, if a combination of factors match up to a particular kind of cancer that they know about, then they are able to diagnose a patient with cancer. But for example, because the world is so complex nowadays and there are so many things going on in the world, there are sometimes certain cancers which are undetectable, or won't be detected until you end up matching a certain stage. But until then, is the cancer not developing in your body? No. You are, until you measure up to a particular stage of a particular cancer, the cancer is slowly developing and progressing in your body, based on what you're doing in your life. And eventually the precancerous condition or a benign tumor develops into a cancer. Now, researchers have done many studies, scientists do these studies where they know, like, these chemicals or these carcinogenic products are causing cancer in a group of patients. Or for years and years, decades of studies have found that if you are exposed to certain chemicals, or people working in certain factories, they will get cancer. So these research work has been done, but most of the time the doctors around the world globally, or even the nurses who might be helping a doctor, they are so much surrounded and always so much busy fighting things related to healthcare in a hospital or in a clinic setting, at their primary importance usually ends up being a person who is at the detectable, diagnosable stages. But unfortunately, right now, a lot of the world's population is in the precancerous stage, because many things are going wrong in the world that people don't understand. And even I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the severity of what was happening to me until I really became debilitatingly sick. Even now, it takes me quite a lot of deep breaths to talk about certain things, because I get tired very easily. And getting tired easily can be a symptom of anemia, but it can be worse symptoms as well. Having breathing problems can be a symptom of respiratory tract infection, but it could be also other problems, which is where I'm coming in and wanting to educate people about this issue, based on what happened with me. so that anyone, or if their parents or their siblings or their family or their friends are having some similar issues and they've gone to the doctor but have not found out what's going wrong with them, this is what might be going wrong in their lives. It is not necessary that you are in a precancerous stage, but it is possible that you are even in the pre-cancerous stage when just something smaller or moderate has fallen apart in your body. Your body is giving you a key indicator that something is going wrong, and you're feeling the physical symptoms, but unfortunately our modern tests or whatever criteria that a cancer patient needs to meet, you will not reach that stage possibly for another 5-10 years. And in that meantime, before you reach this precancerous or cancerous stage, what is happening? The small to moderate symptoms that you start having initially in your body can keep escalating depending on how much carcinogenic materials your body is getting exposed to. And not just carcinogenic materials, because we live and lead complex lives, sometimes your body might be subjected to carcinogenic materials plus heavy metal toxins from your food and environment, plus environmental factors leading to air and water and food pollution, all of which combined is making you sicker. So sometimes a patient may not be just a cancer patient, they could be a patient of various smaller minor disease states going wrong in their different organs of the body, all of which combined is making a patient sick, which is what happened with me. And I don't know where to begin, because right now, after like 4 years of going through this trouble, 3 or 4 years of major healthcare trouble, plus minor things that were going wrong that I didn't realize was going wrong in my life and in my health, all of them combined has led to a patient history of decades. And crystallizing decades of patient history in a short video is very difficult, but I'm going to try. So let's begin with the thyroid related issue. I have done maybe thyroid hormone related blood tests like 4 or 5 times in my life. Once in India, 3-4 times in US. And the number of times I did it in US was because the first 2 times I did it, it was because it was just a normal standard healthcare procedure that a general physician would recommend for a woman of certain age. And also because, see, I have this double chin, so I think if you have this double chin, you are more prone to have some thyroid problems. So that's why my general internal medicine doctor, who I started seeing in my late 20s, was the doctor who recommended the test a couple of times. And initially it was just a normal standard test. And then when in my I used to go to the doctor very rarely in US, because initially in my first few years in US I had student insurance. I had really bad insurance, and when you are young in your early 20s, you don't think that you are sick, so you don't feel the need to go to a doctor for any reason unless you are like severely ill with the flu, or in case of my case, because I used to travel to India because I'm originally from India. Right now I'm posting from India. So when I would come to India, sometimes the healthcare work that I did involved me to go to a physician to do either standard checkup or to get a shot for something related to the work that I was doing. And sometimes they would do TB tests on international students. So because of which, initially when I was a student, I had to go to a physician or a nursing practitioner to get some of these tests done. But later on in life, when I got a good insurance after I started working there, that's when, because of work reasons, I went to the doctor, and also thinking like I'm reached my late 20s, I should at least get a normal standard checkup done to make sure my hormone levels and everything was okay. So that was the one reason for getting the initial test done. But then eventually the doctor detected in my second or third visit to her which was usually once in a couple of years, that she felt that there might be some nodules in this area. Based on her instinct and how I was looking, she had this instinct that there could be something wrong in this area. She touched this area and felt that there could be some growths here. So because of that, she told me to go and get an ultrasound done and also get the thyroid hormones done. And by now, it was like the second or third thyroid hormone level testing that I was doing there. And every time, despite anything that's been wrong in my body, my thyroid hormone levels, T3, T4, TSH, have always been within the normal range. So nothing wrong came up with the thyroid hormone levels. But in the ultrasound, they did find there were small nodules. Nodules are what? Small pimple-like growths around my thyroid organ internally, around this area of the body. So they found some small 1 centimeter, 1 millimeter, actually 1 millimeter, 1 centimeter is too large, a few millimeter size, couple of nodules in this area. So she said, you need to keep doing a regular yearly checkup on this. And being a crappy, self-caring person, also being busy with work and studies, and also not having any kind of symptoms related to this, I completely ignored her, didn't go for a checkup once a year. But I ended up eventually going again, visiting her in a couple of years. And this time when I did go again and visit her in a couple of years, she felt that these nodules should be rechecked again on an ultrasound. And in the second ultrasound, they found that some of the nodules had grown up a slightly bit more in size, because of which they then told me to do something called fine needle aspiration, FNA biopsy. What does fine needle aspiration do? They insert a very fine needle through this area into these nodules, and they suck out the nodular contents. And then these contents that have been sucked out by the needle from various parts of these different nodules are then analyzed by the microscopic pathological labs to see whether these nodules have any kind of cancerous growth in them. And when they did that biopsy, they found that whatever region they extracted these samples from, they found it to be benign. So I had no cancerous growth in my body at that time, which was almost like 14 years back when this first FNA was done, and I was, I think, in my late 20s. So after that, again the doctor said follow up within 1 year. She said 1 year, but again being unconcerned, and I was relieved, like, okay, this is benign. I didn't think too much about the consequences. I was a pharmacist there, but even then I was not afraid. I was like, okay, I have some nodules, so what? And the nodules, they just seem like a pimple like growth inside my body, and they are not tumorous or cancerous, so that's great. And I didn't follow up with her because while I was working busy as a pharmacist, I was trying to think of getting married. I was busy dating someone. Then I started doing some studies. I was busy with that, and all of this kept me occupied for a few more years until I got married, and I was very depressed. And because I was depressed, I went to the doctor again. And this time, like, depressed meaning I had been depressed in the past too, but this time the depression was so intense that I felt I needed to talk to a doctor. And she suggested again, gave some medicines for depression, and for this she suggested you do an ultrasound and maybe possibly an FNAC again. And this was almost, you know how many years back? This was 8 years back. Okay, so while the nodules had been detected almost 14 years back, and I had done maybe 2 follow-ups of the nodules, when 8 years back my doctor suggested, 8 or 7, about 8 years back, she suggested that I do a repeat testing to see if the nodules have grown in size, if anything has worsened. I didn't do that test because I was depressed, I was going through a very bad marriage phase, and all of which led me, and also career wise, I wasn't sure, am I supposed to live in India, should I come back to live in US, should I come back to India. So all these life factors made me completely ignore that I have an illness and I have an issue here in the thyroid region. And most of the time there's only this one symptom that would pop up for me that showed that there could possibly be a thyroid issue, is the fact that I do not tolerate extremeness in temperatures. Like in US, if you keep your thermostat at home, between or in home or at work or in colleges, if the thermostat is between like 75 to like 80 degrees or maybe 72 to 80 degrees, my body will be okay. But if it goes below 72 or if it goes above 80, I'll either start shivering too much if it goes below 70, or I'll start feeling extremely hot if it goes above 80. So which meant to me that my thyroid organ was somehow sensitive, and because thyroid organs and hormones are involved in our body's sensory reaction to temperature, and if you have hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism, sometimes your body temperature, basal body temperature, can be a measure in determining certain problems going on. Like if you have a cytokine storm or a thyroid storm happening, you will feel extremely hot and flushed out in your body. So this thing kind of used to happen whenever the temperature of a place or a room was above 80 degrees. And that's why I used to feel, okay, maybe I have a thyroid problem. And that's why also was the reason why initially I had gone and got my thyroid hormones checked when doing a regular standard health checkup at the doctor's. So, but nothing ever came up hormonal level wise wrong with my body. And even now, after now 14 years of these nodules that were initially detected, what happened? This is the story of what happened after I moved back to India. And in the 7.5 years that I have been back in India, for many years I completely forgot about my thyroid problem. I actually never even kept it in the back of my mind as a health problem, because it was a normal thing for me. Whenever temperature is a little off, I would either turn on the AC, or when I'm feeling extremely cold, everyone around me might not be feeling cold, I would wear jackets and sweaters to keep myself warm. That was the only healthcare measure I took for a seemingly minor health issue. And then what happened was, about in 2019, my health suddenly started worsening due to various reasons. And the thyroid problem escalated somewhere in 2020, and I didn't realize that I was having a thyroid storm like health issue. Like everything, if you go and read on Google or on WebMD or any scientific literature or any scientific publication of what a thyroid storm symptom are going to be, that was happening to me. Some of the main symptoms that happened to me was I was drooling when I was sleeping, and I was feeling extremely tired. I would nap, and around that time the lockdown also happened in India because of COVID issue. So because it was lockdown time, because we were not going out much, I had no problems resting at home. I was happy, like, I didn't care because I was not working and I don't have kids. I'm not married right now. I was just living either alone by myself or living with my brother and dad, who are in their own world. So because of that, I had very minimal responsibilities in my life, so I could have a nap in the afternoon. But it was unusual for me that suddenly I started feeling like so sleepy. There were certain foods that were making me sleepy, and I was having a couple of other health issues going on, which was related to making me sleepy and drowsy. But thyroid problems can also make you lethargic. But thyroid storm related symptoms are flushed out skin, You will have extreme sunlight sensitivity. When you go out in the sun, your skin will start feeling as if it's burning. Right now my skin is looking like all glowy and shiny, but when I was having this thyroid storm phase, at the time my skin was all darkened up, and it was feeling super sensitive. There's a term called leathery skin, and my skin did look like leathery, but obviously because I'm a more fair skinned person, it doesn't look leathery like actual leather, animal leather, but it looks different. It will just not look like this shiny and glowy skin. It will look very dead and roughened skin. And it was basically, I was feeling very I couldn't tolerate the heat outside in the summertime, because my thyroid storm phase happened somewhere between it was happening for a long time, but the initial few 6 months of the thyroid storm phases were minor symptoms, so I completely ignored it. I didn't realize it was anything important, and I never went to a doctor. Then the next 6 months of symptoms were so severe that I was completely debilitated, and I couldn't even walk outside for 5 minutes. I was having erratic heart rate. My heart rate would go like like if I went out for doing a simple chore, like I'm walking down the stairs, one flight of stairs from my building, or 2-3 flights of stairs. If I was living in my house, I'm just walking down the stairs, and I used to love walking. I used to go for 1.5 hour walks daily, or do Zumba exercises at home, sometimes do some yoga or Surya Namaskar. I never can manage more than 10-12 Namaskars at a time, but I couldn't manage even one Surya Namaskar because my heart rate would start like being so erratic that it would scare me, and I would have breathing distress. I was having breathing distress, I was having increased heart rate, I was sweating a lot, I was having sunlight sensitivity, I was feverish, and I was also, whenever I'm sleeping, sometimes I was drooling. And some of these are thyroid storm symptoms. But again, because COVID was going on, because I was not feeling well, so what I was saying was, even though I was a very active person before all these symptoms hit me, once the symptoms started hitting me, I couldn't do normal activities that I used to be capable of doing, and I was having hard time even like carrying like 2-3 kgs of grocery, which, because I've lived like at least for 15-20 years of my life, I have lived alone by myself, done my grocery most of the time by myself, even though briefly I was married, briefly I dated people, but majority of the time I used to carry 8-10 bags of grocery from Smith's while in Utah, or 3-4 bags of grocery from D-Mart when in India, and all those couple of 2 to 10 kgs of grocery I would carry with pretty much ease most of my time in US, most of my time in India. But even in US I had a very brief phase of healthcare problems, and now I'm realizing that problem was also kind of correlated to some precancerous stages, not likely related to thyroid, but maybe related to thyroid, I don't know. But some similar symptoms did coincide in US and India that are related to precancerous stages for patients who are sensitive to these chemicals, and I'll talk about those chemicals in a minute. But first, let me talk about my symptoms. So, because I had all this thyroid storm like phases, and I had forgotten, it had been almost 4 years since my doctor had told me to do this last checkup of my thyroid organ, and I had completely forgotten. I got all these symptoms, and I was not working in pharmacy anymore. I was doing some hobbies and pursuing some spiritual stuff, and because I was not paying attention to healthcare related stuff that I had studied, it didn't strike me that I was going through a thyroid storm until I was like feeling whatever symptoms I was getting. Whenever I went to the ER or saw a doctor, they didn't understand what was going wrong with me. So then I had to think, like, should I get some old reports from US to see if I can convince the doctor that something is wrong. Then I started thinking and realized, oh, I have been getting these thyroid storm like symptoms for over a year now, And then I started realizing, while I was going through some of my old lab reports from US, like, to prove that, I used to, because two things were going wrong with my body, not just the thyroid, some storm related symptoms, but because I was feeling very tired. I got tired, I had appetite loss, I had a dizziness from the water that was being what is our local water supply. So anytime I would take a shower, I would get extremely dizzy and feel like I'm going to fall down now in the bathroom. Like, I was so scared, like, my brother and dad will suddenly see me half naked in the bathroom falling down, because I was so dizzy. I would try to like reduce my bathroom time, and so many other things started happening. Okay, I was getting allergies to soaps, I was getting allergies to any kind of harsh chemicals. Even my earrings, like I used to wear gold earrings pretty regularly all my life. Those gold earrings also started causing allergies, and you can see like how my skin has darkened here, because I got some pus like eruptions in my ears in a few years back, when I was highly allergic. Not few years, maybe like a few months back, when I was still allergic to gold. Now my allergy to gold has reduced, even my allergy to other chemicals have reduced a little bit, but my allergic responses have still been high. And because the doctors were not understanding what was going wrong, but because I had my own pharmacy related healthcare knowledge, I was a scientist also in US, and universe and God just pushed me, go and research this disease yourself. So, and disease conditions, because it is not one disease, I was actually suffering through multiple disease conditions. So what happened, I was looking through my old US report, because I found, like, I did a blood test, normal blood test first, complete blood count related blood test that any woman who's in their 40s are recommended nowadays by normal diagnostic places here, like SRL Diagnostics is one of the places I have used, and their normal 40 plus women's healthcare package that they had. I took a little extensive package. One time I did a normal package, one time I did a little extensive package, and in a span of 1 year I found that my hemoglobin was low. Like in US my hemoglobin used to be around 11 to 12, but in India it had gone down to 10. And I was tired, I had all this anemia like symptoms as well. And then I did inflammation related stress, I did allergy related tests, because my inflammation levels were high, because my allergies suddenly became high. Like, as a child, the only allergies I suffered from was dust pollution, like if you're dusting the fan in India or dusting a table which hasn't been cleaned for a while, those dusts would give me occasional sneeze. Or when I used to live in US and I would travel back to India, at the time, couple of times, just traveling in 2-3 hours of really polluted traffic of Mumbai versus the clean air my lungs had been used to while living in Salt Lake City, Utah, meant that my body just couldn't take this excess air pollution. So I fell sick with flu-like respiratory tract symptoms, where I had severe nasal allergies, I was sneezing a lot, a puffy nose, stuffed nose, which would go away after a couple of days or week of staying in India, because my body would then normalize to the allergic responses it was having to the air pollution in Mumbai. But this was when I was traveling from US, staying in India for 3-4 weeks, and traveling in heavy traffic in Mumbai. That's when this happened. And not always. When I was healthy, nothing happened, or I would just get 1 day of flu symptom instead of a week of flu symptoms. So our body's immunity also is capable of fighting many kinds of pollution, many kinds of stresses, when it's in a healthy fit state, or when it is used to fighting this. Because I didn't have these extreme allergies when I grew up in India. I didn't have this extreme allergies when I lived in US, but the only allergy that I would happen in US or India was the dust allergy, which would lead to minor sneezing when cleaning any space with dust. So that was the extent of my allergies all my life. But suddenly all kinds of chemical. And another allergic like response that I used to have was my body could not tolerate, like I didn't know it was an allergic symptom, but what happened was in US, when friends used to drink, sometimes we would go out for dinner, and my friends would order wine, and I am not too much fond of alcohol, so I would very rarely try out alcohol. Sometimes I've tried out alcoholic like cosmopolitan or margarita like drinks, but usually direct alcohol very rarely I would try out. So but my friends sometimes would insist, why don't you have a sip of this wine we have ordered. So when my friends would order red wine or white wine, I used to feel, and one time I went even in the Sonoma Valley area in Bay Area, where they have these wineries, and we had gone wine tasting with friends. Both these times, just having a small 1-2 ml sip of wine was enough to make me feel very, very drowsy. So I avoided wine like crazy. Like I knew that wine just makes me super drowsy. I will start like not just drowsy, I just feel my brain is not functioning. And now when I did some of these tests, it made sense, because in my test it came out that I'm allergic to yeast. And if you're allergic to yeast, it's very likely that the yeast in certain food products, it's not that I'm allergic to all kinds of yeast, but certain kinds of yeast make me feel, if I consume them, it makes me super drowsy. And especially when your inflammatory responses in the body are high. Because what happened to me, for years and years I've consumed occasionally burgers, like once a month or something. In US for a few years I did that, when I used to work as a pharmacist or when I was a graduate student. If not once a month, sometimes once a week also I have had burgers. In India we have grown up eating bread. In childhood, bread and eggs were our breakfast meals many times. Toast and eggs or French toast or something like that was consumed by us many times. But and most of the time burgers and all these food has not consciously caused any health problems for me. But in the recent years, when I said, during the COVID lockdown phase, I was at home and I was napping a lot, I observed that when I was ordering food from outside with any kind of bread in it, I would feel super drowsy. And then this test then correlated this fact that if you're having inflammation and allergic responses and you're allergic to yeast, then some yeast products like alcohol which have yeast in them, yogurts which have yeast in them, certain kind of yeast, because it depends on what you're allergic to, and bread, all these three were starting to make me feel extremely drowsy and dizzy. And with bread, I was starting to fall asleep after consuming certain burgers and sandwiches from certain places. It could be other ingredients in them, I don't know, but I was super drowsy and dizzy. So this was, and that's why I'm saying multiple things were going wrong with my body for a whole year. That made it very confusing when I went even to a doctor to explain these symptoms. It's taken me how many time to explain some of this? 33 minutes. And imagine trying to explain some of this in a 10-minute, 15-minute visit to a ER. And half of these things I would even forget to mention. So and most of the time doctors are only interested in what are your immediate symptoms, and when I would tell them the immediate symptoms, they wouldn't be able to diagnose anything for me. So that's why I had to do my own lab reports, my own testing, and my own research and thinking to figure out what symptoms are happening because of what reason. So the drowsiness and all I figured out was happening from yeast based consumption. Then the thyroid storm I figured out was happening to the thyroid related issue. So when I went, actually after a year of having thyroid storm symptoms and a couple of months when I didn't have thyroid storm symptoms, but I still needed to get the thyroid thing checked, right? Like the universe was urging me, go to the doctor. So I went finally to the thyroid specialist after asking my friends around. They suggested a specialist who wanted to do an online checkup, but I thought it would be better because of COVID. She didn't want to go and visit any patient like face to face. and for some reason that didn't pan out with me. I thought it would be better if I go to an actual checkup with a doctor. Because I was also thinking in the back of my mind, my internal medicine doctor in US, she actually literally checked up this area with her hands to understand that I had a thyroid problem. So when I went to this doctor, she was not one of the best clinicians I have met in my life, because I went to her when I was looking like this. Some of my thyroid symptoms, storm symptoms, had abated. The only symptom that was still left was the increased heart rate problem related to thyroid storms or thyroid problems, and the fact that I had possibly a lump-like thing, like how my throat area is looking right now. This is how I was looking the day I went to meet that doctor. And she started asking me, what are your recent symptoms? I'm like, ma'am, I've come because she was a thyroid specialist, had gone to her for thyroid problems, and my thyroid problems had been existing in my body for 6 months or a year. So I wanted to tell her this whole 33 minutes of thyroid related and partly allergy related history, but she was not willing to listen. She's like, what is your current symptom? So I told her my current symptom, and my current symptom was extreme allergic reaction, even now, to metals and chemicals in water, chemicals in food. I was getting all sorts of allergies. I was highly inflamed. My inflammation, IgG and some other immunoglobulin levels were high. In allergic test also, my immunoglobulin levels for allergies related symptoms were high. They found a couple of different things I was allergic to in the allergy test, and they also didn't find many things I was feeling allergy towards, but the test didn't prove it, because they could have used different chemicals while doing the test than the chemicals that were impacting my health. So I told her I'm getting these allergy symptoms, and because I'm looking like this shiny, there's no redness in my skin, she didn't believe that. She thought I'm just making a symptom up. And even now I have allergies, but the only reason I don't have pails, rashes in my skin, or scaly patches in any of my visible area of the body is because I avoid using those chemicals. Wouldn't it be stupid, like if you are washing your hand with a particular soap and you think and you get like scratches and dry and flaky skin because of the brand of soap you're using or a brand of shampoo you're using, and you start getting scaly. I do have some scaly patches in my scalp currently, and this problem also has been happening for many years of my life, both in US and in India. I'm very sensitive to shampoos and chemicals in water, so because of that I'm most of the time very careful in using products for my skin and hair, like any kind of beauty products or any kind of shampoo related products, any kind of toiletries that cause some kind of skin irritation or start giving me flaky skin or start showing some kind of rash like reaction, I immediately stop using it. I don't take it to the rash stage, right? If you know this particular chemical or this particular soap, if you apply it, you're getting red patches in your skin, are you going to use it regularly or will you stop using it? So she was not ready to believe that. So then I was like, ma'am, you don't have to believe this, it's okay, but can you listen to my symptoms for which, like, I wanted to tell her, will you listen to the symptoms for which I have come to you, that is relevant to your practice? Because I couldn't tell her I'm a healthcare practitioner, I have years of healthcare experience, I know many things related to pathology and pharmacology and biology, and I know my body. All these things you can't tell to a doctor, they don't have the time to listen. But she needed to listen to my past history. But this doctor, that's why I felt, was not one of the best doctors, because she was not ready to understand that sometimes patients can come to a doctor after years of suffering or months of suffering through some disease, and some patients will realize that it was a disease that they are suffering through, or some patients may not even know it's a disease they are going through, right? But I knew about it only because of my US reports and my US doctor, that I had a thyroid problem, and for most of my life I had been asymptomatic or barely symptomatic. So she was almost going to chuck me out of her clinic. saying that you have nothing. And even though she didn't believe that I had an allergy issue, she was ready to prescribe me some medicine, and I had not gone to her for my allergy problems. I knew the best way to solve my allergy problems was avoid all the chemicals that is possible for me to be avoided that are causing these allergies, and the chemicals that I can't avoid, I can't do anything about it, right? So because there are chemicals in our air, there are chemicals in our water supply which I couldn't avoid, and which is what is why I still have, even though I stopped using like shampoos for the last 4 years. When earlier as a teen and in my 20s and 30s, I've used shampoos like 3 times a week. I would shampoo my hair, but because once these allergies and inflammation started happening, and severe allergies and inflammations, I have shampooed my hair like maybe once a month or once a week, depending on if I'm going outside much. And I've been so sick that I don't have the need, I'm not working to go outside, I'm not interacting because of COVID, people have stopped socializing. So all these factors meant that I don't have to shampoo my hair regularly. And look at my hair, the last time I didn't even shampoo it. I used some powder thing to clean my hair, and that's it. And this last time I did it was 2 days back. My hair looks amazing, but my scalp still has some scaly patches. Why? Because even if I don't use any chemicals, if I'm just cleaning my hair with water, there is water pollution in our area. The chemicals in the water supply here are causing my scalp to become scaly. And another thyroid symptom that was happening to me and has been happening for the last 3-4 years, chunks and chunks of hair were falling off. Actually right now I'm in a better health, so I'm not having chunks of hair fall off right now, but the day I went to meet her, I had chunks of hair that were falling. But the thing is, being a patient, sometimes you forget these symptoms or do not correlate it as a healthcare symptom. So I forgot to mention that I was having hair fall, intense hair fall, or that I was having appetite loss. But eventually, because she was almost ready to throw me off with just a prescription for an allergy, I told her, "Ma'am, I have this report from US. Can you please look at this report?" And I showed her my ultrasound report from US. That's when it struck her. Oh, she might have a thyroid related issue. And that's when she got up from her chair, came to examine whether I might have any nodules here, and used her educational skills. And then she ordered some reports, and when she ordered the ultrasound report, I went to the ultrasound clinic nearby. When I went to the ultrasound clinic nearby, the doctor who was doing the test, when she was like this pushing around this area was sensitive to touch. So she thought it needs a biopsy. And also because the report showed that some of these nodules had grown in size, and earlier I had maybe like 3 large nodules, right now I had more than 3 nodules. So both of which indicated to her that I should do a biopsy. So based on her recommendation of a same fine needle FNAC biopsy that I had done almost like 14 years back in US, they wanted me to do the same thing in India. So I went, and not 14, at that time it was like maybe 12 years back in US. So I went to do the FNAC, and this time I went in a different hospital. And because I didn't have a proper provider, and because I didn't like this doctor, I didn't want to go back to her. So I went actually in India through not unofficial, I just directly went to a hospital that was near to my house, and with the ultrasound report, and told them they have suggested an FNAC, can they do that for me? They asked the doctor's name, and they put some other doctor's name in it. But the thing is, in India there is this problem also that maybe I'll address in another video. But the FNAC biopsy, what did it show? The FNAC biopsy showed this hospital where I went to, they didn't contact me because they didn't have a good provider's name in the list. And this is the thing, I had waited and waited for a week and 2 weeks, no one is replying. Then finally I contacted the hospital, like I went to for an FNAC, where is my report? And the pathologist had a question mark there whether it is some kind of cancer, but she had put it as multiple myeloma question mark. Okay, and I will come back to multiple myeloma now, that I will present in another video because this is almost 45 minutes long. So in this video, what I have described so far is that sometimes people can have thyroid storm like symptoms, sometimes people can go to a doctor much later in life, and sometimes people can dismiss or think because they've got a clean bill of health from the doctor saying that they have benign nodules or benign tumor, that they are healthy. But unfortunately, if your exposure to toxins in your life are still ongoing, these same nodules can get converted to other health impacting things. Like in my case, it got diagnosed eventually as a benign follicular lesion. So now what has happened, these pimple like structures inside this thyroid organ has erupted. Some of them have erupted and become open wounds and lesions. So like how we get lesions inside when we have cold sores, they become those lesionous particles inside, which is a harmful thing. I'll talk about that also in my next video. But I'm getting tired and this is a long video, so please take the time to mull on what I have said so far, and have a good day. And if anyone is having some similar kind of symptoms like this in the Navi Mumbai area, I would want them to comment here, because I know there is a major problem brewing in this neighborhood that the doctors in this area do not understand. Thank you and have a good day.